Okay, Magic Makers. Today I have the honor of having Dr. Anshul Gupta here, and we are talking all things thyroid and Hashimoto's. And I'm really excited about this because I feel like, especially my audience, for us women over 40, many of us, we have heard of thyroid issues. I think Hashimoto's is probably one of the most prominent thyroid issues that many people have heard about. And I don't think we fully understand what it really means. It just kind of feels like this broad category of a thyroid condition. So I brought on Dr. Gupta, who is an expert and also has written himself a great book that explains all about Hashimoto. So Dr. Gupta, please welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. It's a pleasure to share information about this important topic of Hashimoto's and thyroid disorders.
So, you go to medical school and, I think everyone goes to medical school with a very different vision of what they want to do versus what they come out doing. Did you go into medical school specifically thinking that you would be focusing so much on the thyroid?
Absolutely not. So actually, my story of going to the medical school, or even before that, when I wanted to become a physician or a doctor, was that my uncle, who was a doctor, was working in a very small town, and a majority of his clients he was seeing was heart related,
Mm.
that either have blood pressure issues or cardiac issues, so treating them. So that's what I wanted to become a cardiologist when I will go to medical school and finally become that. But as you said, going into the medical school, seeing what I want to do, I just did not want to kind of be associated with cardiologists. I want to do the whole gamut of things, seeing, like females, seeing males, seeing kids and seeing adults and everything. So then that led me to become a family physician. So that way I can see each and every disease and kind of treat all people who need me.
Mm-hmm.
But then later on, actually, like my health journey, I was having my own health issues. Like I was gaining a lot of weight. I was having a lot of gut problems. I was feeling tired, fatigue, brain fog issues. And I was just few years into my family medicine practice. I could not fix myself. Nothing was getting better. I was taking medications for it. I even saw different specialists who did all different kinds of tests to check, for like gut problems, to check
Mm-hmm.
for allergies, to check my gallbladder, to check the blood work. Everything was, they could not fix me. And that's where I found functional medicine. And then in functional medicine, which is kind of the root cause medicine,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of made a plan to kind of fix my root causes by natural approaches, by changing my lifestyle, taking certain supplements, making a stress reduction kind of, plan for myself. And within few months, my life was completely new. All the symptoms were gone. I was off all medications.
Mm.
I lost more than 40 pounds during
Oh,
this
wow.
time. And that was very phenomenal. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then later on, actually, I was working in the Cleveland Clinic functional medicine department, just maybe I think 6 months later on. And what I saw was this pattern, a pattern of middle aged females between 30 to 60 years of age. And they were all coming with similar symptoms as mine, of having weight gain problems, of having brain fog, feeling tired all the time, having mood changes of depression, anxiety, gut problems, and they were all taking medications and following what the doctor wanted them to do, but
Mm-hmm.
still not getting better.
Right.
And that actually, and all of them had one thing common: they all had thyroid disorder, especially Hashimoto's disease. So
Huh.
that actually prompted me to kind of start researching into this disease, because I could instantly connect with all of these females, because I went through similar struggles.
Right.
So I kind of research why females are not getting better with Hashimoto's disease. And that's where, I found a lot of different root causes playing a role. And then I made a protocol to implement for all of these patients of mine. And after implementing the protocol, we saw phenomenal success.
Awesome.
Each and every female improve their lifestyle, improve their quality of life, and their lab works get better. And so, like we have saved so many lives during this time, and all of the females kind of are getting the quality of life that they deserve.
Perfect. And no, and I love that. So let's just take a giant step back. So, many of us have heard of, okay, I'm going to go way back. We're going to start at the very beginning. Thyroid. So many of us hear thyroid, and it's this this for this little gland that it is, it causes so many challenges. So, what does our thyroid actually do?
So thyroid is actually very teeny tiny gland, as you said, but without the thyroid gland and the thyroid hormone, there will be no life.
Ah,
We need thyroid hormone to live.
wow.
So much so important is the thyroid hormone. Now, literally, thyroid hormone is responsible from head to toe of maintenance of each and every organ of our body.
Oh, wow.
So when we are actually very teeny tiny, growing into our mom's womb, okay, if we do not get enough thyroid hormone from our mom when she is pregnant with us, then we will not be able to develop our brain. So we have seen this issue, like, previously when we did not know about it, like probably a decade ago, that some, like, kids were being born with a lot of, like, brain issues, and we were not able to identify what was going on. And the
Huh.
real problem was that they were not getting enough thyroid hormone.
Wow.
So thyroid hormone is needed for a proper growth. Thyroid hormone is needed for a brain development. Now that is when we are very young or very early. When we even get older, then also thyroid hormone is needed by a brain for proper functioning, for proper utilization of energy, for kind of, memory issues and all those things, our brain needs it. Then if you come to our gut or the GI system, our GI system again needs thyroid hormone for it to kind of digest our food, as well as kind of, help with the movement of food through the whole gut tract. So that's the reason a lot of people with thyroid issues will have either constipation or diarrhea or bloating,
Ah,
because their food is not getting digested and not moving forward in their gut.
wow.
Then, we need thyroid to maintain energy. So that's the reason a lot of females or males are feeling low energy issues with that. Thyroid hormone is needed for maintain our body temperature. So a lot of us feel cold,
Yeah.
or they cannot get cold, because of that. And the
Mm,
last thing, thyroid hormone is a metabolic hormone. It regulates our metabolism.
yeah.
All that fat and all the carbohydrates, all the food that we consume in our body, it needs to be burned to kind of either consume as an energy or store in our body. And for
Wow.
that, thyroid hormone is needed. So that's the reason several people continue to gain weight or not able to lose weight, because they do not have enough thyroid hormone. So
Yeah. And
literally, so much so important is a thyroid hormone.
And it's so funny because it's like, I think many of us think about thyroid at the latter. That's the last thing you said was, thinking about it more about regulating our metabolism, not so much doing anything for our brain or for our gut. So that was pretty like an aha for me. So thank you for that learning. So, all right. So now we know, like, okay, here's my thyroid. It controls life. Now, when people are talking about Hashimoto's, what exactly is happening, with the thyroid that is causing Hashimoto's?
So Hashimoto's disease is basically an autoimmune condition of your thyroid gland. In this disease, what happens is that your body starts producing antibodies, which starts a very slow destruction of the thyroid gland. And it might take weeks to months to years for the thyroid gland to be destroyed to the point that it
Mm,
is not able to produce enough thyroid hormone. And then it is being diagnosed as low thyroid or hypothyroidism. Now, the interesting fact is that most people, when they're going to the regular doctors, they only get one blood test done, which is the TSH, to check if
yeah.
the thyroid is producing enough thyroid hormone or not. They are not getting tested for Hashimoto's disease. So most people are not even aware that what is the reason their thyroid is not able to produce enough thyroid hormone. They're just being told, well, one day your thyroid just decided not to produce enough thyroid hormone, and here you are. You just need to take this medicine. But in reality, there can be different reasons, and Hashimoto's disease is the number one reason of hypothyroidism world over right now. So I think each and every person should ask their doctor to check if they do have Hashimoto's disease or not.
So if I were to go to my doctor, what to check for Hashimoto's, what would specifically I ask? Because I know that when I first started, very similar to you, gaining weight, I'm like, something is off. My doctor just gave me that TSH level, and she's like, it's fine. And when I went to someone like you, who is more of a functional doctor, they're like, that tells you nothing. So what should, the person going to their doctor physically ask for?
Absolutely. So there are different kinds of tests, and so that's why let's first understand what kind of thyroid hormones and how the thyroid hormone works in our body. So this whole thing starts actually with the master endocrine gland, which is located in our brain called pituitary. That's a master endocrine gland which produces this hormone called TSH, which is the thyroid stimulating hormone. This hormone goes from your brain, from your pituitary to your thyroid gland. It is a signaling hormone for the thyroid gland to start producing thyroid hormone. Now, the thyroid actually starts producing one kind of thyroid hormone, which is the T4, which is the inactive thyroid hormone. Now, this T4 actually circulates in our whole body and goes to different parts of our body. And in the cells, it needs to be converted to the active form of thyroid hormone, which is the T3. And then that's the thyroid hormone our body or your cell can utilize. Now, the only test we are getting is TSH, right? So we are
Right.
not even actually measuring actual thyroid hormone. So for that purpose, first of all, we should not only get TSH, we should get free T4 as well as free T3 levels. So we know if our body is producing enough thyroid hormone or not. Now, this is just
Gotcha.
to check how your thyroid is doing. This is not even for Hashimoto's. Now,
Right.
beyond that, to check for Hashimoto's disease, we need to check antibodies. So there are two antibodies which can be checked to check for Hashimoto's. One of them is called TPO, which is a thyroid peroxidase antibodies, and the other one is called thyroglobulin antibodies. Now, any of these antibodies, if it is higher than the reference range for that lab, that is diagnostic of Hashimoto's disease. You don't need any ultrasound, you don't need any biopsies, you don't need any fancy test to confirm it. If you do have antibodies, that tells you that a person has Hashimoto's disease. And the good part is that these tests are not like tests which you have to go to very specialized labs.
Mm-hmm.
Any regular lab, if you go like LabCorp, Quest, like they will do this test. And the same blood that they're using to check your TSH, the same blood can be used to check for these antibodies too.
Right. So
So
it's
that's
not
the
a
good
lot.
part, that
Yeah.
these are not fancy tests. Anybody can get them.
Right. Okay. So I get the test, I find out I have Hashimoto's. So what does that actually mean? You get a lot of times, you know, as a doctor, doctors just say, oh, you have blah, blah, blah. And you're like, so what does that mean?
Absolutely. So first of all, like as I said, so there are two different things that people have to differentiate. One is Hashimoto's disease and one is hypothyroidism or low thyroid. Okay. Now both of them might not be same. Hashimoto's disease is telling you that you do have an autoimmune disease where your body is producing antibodies, which is doing a destruction of your thyroid gland, right?
Okay.
And the second part of it is this, what we call as hypothyroidism. Now, sometimes when this Hashimoto's disease leads to the destruction of the thyroid gland, then you're not able to produce enough thyroid hormone, and then that leads to hypothyroidism. Now, when you go to a regular doctor, when they're checking only the TSH, even though your TSH might be abnormal, they will only give you a medicine called levothyroxine. Now, levothyroxine is just a thyroid hormone. It is a band-aid that has been given to your body to support your thyroid to kind of replenish the thyroid hormone needed by your body. But levothyroxine is not doing anything for the underlying autoimmune inflammation, which is destroying the thyroid gland.
Okay.
So for that purposes, unless and until you do things to lower those antibodies, your thyroid is dying day in, day out.
So,
So it is very
so,
important to safeguard the thyroid gland in Hashimoto's disease. So you can actually safeguard your thyroid gland so that you don't develop hypothyroidism or it doesn't get worse for you.
okay. So let me just take a step back. So I go to the doctor and they say, okay, Kim, you have Hashimoto's. Here's your thyroid medication. That isn't stopping Hashimoto's.
That is correct. Yes, it is not doing anything to stopping the Hashimoto's disease. It is just supporting your body for the extra thyroid hormone that it needs.
Right. So for I'm sure just like everyone else, my mind is like, so I'm sure everyone else who might have been on thyroid medication for decades is thinking like, hey, I'm doing the right thing. I'm taking this medication and I'm supporting my thyroid. And so, I'm, let's just say, better. So now what are other things I can do in addition? Okay, two-part question. Part A. So I'm taking this medication. What are things I can do to support that my antibodies aren't eating away at my thyroid? And two, can I support my thyroid without being on the medication?
So these are complicated questions, both of them. Okay. So first of all, let's tackle this question about, can you support your thyroid with or without medications, right? So that depends on situation to situations. People
Mm-hmm.
who have had Hashimoto's disease for, let's say, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, now the thyroid might be destroyed to the point that they might need some medicines to support the thyroid gland. Okay. So that might be the possibility, right? Or sometimes when they get diagnosed with Hashimoto's at a very early stages, then the thyroid might still be rejuvenated so that they can either get off the medicines or they might not need the medicine. So that's a situation. It depends on person to person. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But my deal over here for people is that if you do have antibodies, that means they are destroying your thyroid gland. And if
Okay.
your thyroid gland is completely destroyed, they're going to start destroying other parts of your body. And the research suggests that once you get one autoimmune disease, your chances of having a second autoimmune disease increases more than 4 to 5 times
Oh,
as
wow.
compared to a normal person.
Wow.
So again, like you're not just doing these things or anything to safeguard your thyroid, you're doing actually so that you don't get more and more diseases in the future. So whether with medicines or without medicines, that's not the question. The question is actually, can we lower the antibodies? Can we improve Hashimoto's disease? And the answer to that question is that yes, you
Okay.
can lower antibodies and as well as you can tackle Hashimoto's disease. Now, the question is, how do you do it, right?
Yeah.
And that's exactly the point I was trying to research, like all those 4 or 5 years before I made the protocol in which I discussed in the book. So what I identified, the research suggests that Hashimoto's disease is actually, it happens because of interplay between our genetic makeup and the environment around us.
Hmm.
Now, a lot of people, when they hear this story, they said, oh, well, it is in my genes.
Yeah.
So that's the reason, I got Hashimoto's disease. But that is not true. Research also does that. If, there are two parts of this equation, one is genes and the second is the environment. So if we take care of our environment, we reduces our chances of having Hashimoto's disease. Plus, there is a very high chance that we might be able to reverse it or control it in a very good fashion.
Mm-hmm.
So I identified 5 major root causes from the environmental factors, which play an important role in Hashimoto's disease. So those 5 main categories, first of them is our food sensitivities.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, food is medicine. We all know that. But wrong foods can lead to Hashimoto's disease.
Right.
We have good amount of research suggesting that, inflammatory food, processed food, gluten, dairy, sugar, all of these foods have been associated with increased incidence of autoimmune diseases like Hashimoto's. And we are seeing more and more people having food sensitivities. So food sensitivity playing a very important role. The second one is nutritional deficiencies. Now, your thyroid needs a lot of different vitamins and minerals to produce thyroid hormone. And our food itself is low in a lot of vitamins and minerals, which our thyroid needs. So even though we might be eating the best diet, but our body is not getting the right nutrients, and that's the reason we can get Hashimoto's. The third one is stress.
Mm.
Now, like we are getting more and more stressed out these days,
Yeah.
whether it is physical stress, emotional stress, personal stress, work related stress, especially females, because they are
Oh, God. Yeah.
hats now these days, right? That again piles sprays, like insecticides, pesticides on our crops or
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
food,
Yeah.
or it's the heavy metals or the environmental toxins like mold toxins. These again trigger Hashimoto's disease. And the last one is infections.
Mm.
Especially infections like viral infections, especially what we call as Epstein-Barr virus or infectious
Oh.
mononucleosis, can lead to Hashimoto's. Parasites in your gut can lead to Hashimoto's. Other
Mm.
viral infections can cause Candida infection can cause it. Lyme disease can cause it. So host of infections, chronic infections can also do that. So these are the big 5 categories of root causes which are actually responsible for leading to Hashimoto's disease in each and every person.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So now that, So people listen here and they're like, okay, these all seem like things that many of us are exposed to. Are there natural ways that I can start to, either if I'm on the Hashimoto's path or not on the Hashimoto's path, is there ways that I can start to better support my thyroid so I don't end up with Hashimoto's?
Absolutely. So I'm a big proponent of lifestyle changes because
Mm,
lifestyle is the core of our existence and can prevent as well as treat a lot of different diseases. So in that, obviously, food plays a very important role, right?
mm,
So how we discuss food sensitivities, is on the rise, and that can lead to Hashimoto's disease. So for me, a diet which is good for prevention as well as treatment of Hashimoto's is basically has two approaches to it. One is that remove foods which is bad for your thyroid, which
okay.
includes processed food, fast food, fried food, gluten, dairy, sugar. So remove those foods which are causing inflammation, which are causing Hashimoto's disease, and then include foods which are good for your thyroid as well as healing for your thyroid. So in those, the first category of foods is all these green, leafy, non-starchy vegetables.
Mm,
Vegetables are great, like it has been shown in several research studies that a plant-based diet can be very, very helpful for a lot of Hashimoto's patients.
mm,
And that includes a lot of different kind of non-starchy vegetables, whether it is the greens, the spinaches, the cruciferous vegetables, whether, your lentils, your beans, or any other vegetables, is really good for the thyroid gland. So that's first thing. Now, a lot of people have a lot of concern that cruciferous vegetables are bad for the thyroid and they have been told not to use
yeah.
them or not to eat them. Now, this was actually a very small research study which was done very, I think 20 years ago now. And this research study actually showed that people who are low in iodine or people have thyroid disorder because of low iodine, they only, should not be eating the cruciferous vegetables. 20 years ago, the major reason of low thyroid was low iodine. But now, the number one reason of low thyroid is Hashimoto's disease. And we
Gotcha.
have shown a couple of research studies which do show these cruciferous vegetables can improvement for Hashimoto's because they have antioxidants that helps support inflammation. They have detoxifying compounds which again led to removal of toxins from the thyroid gland. So all of these vegetables are really great. Then good quality protein, chicken, fish, turkey. If you eat sorry, if you do eat non-vegetarian food, or if you're a vegetarian, then you can eat like your lentils, your beans, your nuts and seeds. All of those good quality proteins are very, very important to support your thyroid. Then good quality fats. Now, again, in the last
Yeah,
decade, everybody has been told fats are really bad. But
true.
what we fail to tell people is that there are two things about the fat. They're not all the fats are the same. We have good fats and we have bad fats. So we just need to stay away from the bad fats, but we need good fats. Our brain is 70% fat. So if you don't eat fats, good fats, our brain doesn't work, right?
True.
So we need good quality fats like, avocados, nuts and seeds, olive oils, coconut oils, fatty fishes, all those things, have good fats. We need to include those things. So these are all like, things, which if we do this diet, which including anti-inflammatory diet, including good quality vegetables and good quality protein and good fat, and stay away from the bad food, that is definitely a very good start for people to prevent as well as treat their Hashimoto's disease. Now, beyond that, obviously, like stress management, because as I shared, stress is such a very big player in Hashimoto's disease. I think each and every person should start, incorporating some stress reduction exercises in their
Oh, for
daily routine.
sure.
I'm not talking about like giving up 1 hour or 2 hours of doing meditation or yoga or
Yeah,
anything,
yeah,
but
yeah,
10
yeah.
to 15 minutes, right? Research shows even 10 to 15 minutes of these stress reduction things, either deep breathing or meditation or journaling. These are great ways of improving your stress, profile in your body and can definitely be very much helpful. So again, just build those things in your schedule. They can be life transforming.
Yeah, it's funny how in our society we have normalized stress. When you ever ask somebody, I'll be like, "Hey, how are you doing today?" "Oh, so busy." Like that's always kind of like the first answer out of someone's mouth. No one's ever says like, "Oh, I'm peaceful." Like, it's rare for someone to say that to you. Um, so you've taken this like deep dive, you've written a book. So in the book, what can, and I want you to go out and grab it wherever you can find your books. And I'll put a link in the show notes so you can easily find it for him. But in your book, clearly you laid out for us, what causes Hashimoto's. You've laid out your 5 principles here. In your book, can we find, ways that I can start to bring some of this into my life? What can I find in your book?
Absolutely. So again, the 3 steps, which I've kind of discussed in the book is that the very first step is finding the root cause, right? So and I've spoken about like 5 of these major root causes. Now it's very difficult to identify which is causing it, but I kind of give you some questionnaire in the book, which kind of gives you hints into what might be the root cause playing a role. Now, the one major mistake a lot of people make is that, they feel that there is only one root cause, which is
Mm,
causing Hashimoto's disease. While what I have identified by working with thousands of patients is that most people will have more than 2 to 3 root causes,
yeah.
which are interplaying and playing a role in causing Hashimoto's disease. So don't stop at just finding one root cause. You have to look at all the 5 root causes and see how many of those you have. So that's the very first step I discuss in the book. And as I said, I had laid out some questions that you might be able to answer, and that might give you some hints into what might be the major root cause and what might be the minor root cause. The second step is obviously starting with the lifestyle changes. We discuss the
Mm,
specific diet in the book, like how you can incorporate the diet, what things to eat, what not to eat, very important aspects of things. And then I talk about certain supplements which can be supporting, like your thyroid and inflammation levels. And the last, we talk about removing toxicities from our body, right?
mm.
Which is the stress. Stress is a toxicity. We need to remove that. We all have toxins in our body,
Oh
right?
God, yeah.
So again, how to optimize, how to kind of lead a clean life where you can reduce the toxin burden in your environment. Now, I just want to caution over here, in the book or anywhere else, I don't talk about specific detox protocols because I've seen so many people doing
Mm,
detox on their own and actually getting worse. So I
yeah.
caution people, please do not start a hard detox on your own, whether, it says online buying detox bundles, because detox is a complex process. There are different steps involved in detoxification. And if you do not do it correctly, then actually your symptoms and your disease can get worse and you can actually harm your body. So
Wow.
it's very important if you do feel that you have toxins playing a role in your system or you got exposed to them. So working with a functional medicine or an integrative provider who knows how to properly detoxify a body is the only way you can safely do it. But
Now,
that's what I lay out in the book, like these very simple steps and simple ways, like how you can get started, what is going on with you. And then so you can at least get started the lifestyle and some supplements. So that way the things can get better.
do you actively take patients?
Yes, so we have actually opened up a virtual functional medicine practice. So that means, we can literally actually see people from all over the country or all over the world, where we take people through our 3 step process of actually identifying their root cause and then improving them, in a stepwise fashion to get them better. So people can work with us, like they can easily find information on our website, which is anshulguptamd.com. And then they can find more information of how to work with us and what kind of, program we'll be doing with them.
Good. Because I think, as people are listening to this and kind of hearing, if we go back to the very beginning here in your story, many of us have that kind of unexplained weight gain. And part of it could be, some of the lifestyle choices we've made. And some of it could just be that it is this, underlying thyroid condition that, might have gone undetected because, as you mentioned, a general practice person might have just given you that um, baseline test and not really kind of unpacks all the varying levels of the thyroid that you broke down for us so nicely. So one of the things that you want to kind of tap into before we wrap up here is that you said out of the 5 things there could be multiple root causes here. And then you said there's what could be multiple root causes, and then there's one that could be a little bit more extensive, and then one that could be a little less extensive. If I'm trying to kind of like approach this on my own, would you recommend I start with the one that has like my kind of my minor issue and then kind of work my way to my major issue?
Actually, no, the other way around. I think it's
So do
better
the
to
major.
address the major first and then go to the minor. Because most people, when they address their major root cause, I will say probably 40 to 50% of their symptoms should get better just with
Gotcha.
addressing the main root cause.
Gotcha.
And I think that's where, but I still, again, like I feel that doesn't matter what root cause you have, lifestyle changes
Oh, for
are
sure.
the like the bottom line to things. So I think, like that's the first thing that people should start making changes to, like, try to improve better food choices, try to kind of incorporate stress reduction, try to incorporate some exercise routine in your thing, as well as improving your sleep routines. So these things can be life changing. I feel if people who have Hashimoto's or suffering from symptoms and their blood work is still normal, if they do all of these lifestyle changes itself, I think 30 to 40% or more people will actually feel completely back to normal.
And that's that you brought up something that maybe just kind of, speaking of exercise. So if I do have Hashimoto's, is exercise something that is prescribed, or do I have to change my exercise? Because for many people listening here, exercise is their stress release, right? They're like, oh, exercise is how I release my stress. And you and I both know that like exercise is both great, beneficial, but also could also be a stressor depending on where your system is.
Absolutely. So you actually, this is a very important point. Like want people to understand. We can talk about exercise now, and then maybe fasting is another thing that we can talk about,
Oh
intermittent
yeah.
fasting.
Yeah, yeah,
That will be the
yeah.
second thing we'll talk. But let me tackle the exercise piece first. So in Hashimoto's or thyroid conditions, exercise is fine, but the right kind of exercise is very important. Because thyroid gland, as I said, is a metabolic gland, right? So it changes the production of thyroid hormone very quickly depending on how much body is stressed out and what kind of exercise we are doing. So now these days most people are going for HIIT training, which is a
Mm,
high intensity interval training. And then people are doing very extensive exercising, or like preparing themselves or their body for like long marathons.
yeah, yeah,
People are like
yeah.
running like one marathon every month, like for 12 months a year. That's the kind of they are doing it. Now, those exercises are not good, especially if you do have thyroid disorder or Hashimoto's disease, because what they do is that the HIIT or any kind of these stressing exercises, they put too much pressure on your thyroid gland, and that causes burning out of the thyroid gland, and that's where we see kind of a waxing and waning of the
Mm,
thyroid hormone in the body, because your thyroid cannot keep up with the demand which your body needs to produce the thyroid hormone to keep the metabolic rate churning. And then
gotcha.
suddenly that exercise is gone, and then now the thyroid gland needs to produce less thyroid hormone. So this it always goes to these yo-yos, which is not good for people with thyroid disorders. So I think like a mix of a cardio and strength training exercises is the best way moving forward for thyroid patients.
Now,
So if you do this balance.
so if to stick on the exercise for a second, so could over exercising potentially cause thyroid issues?
Well, we don't have any research to suggest that, but we do have research, like there was actually research done on marathon runners.
Mm-hmm.
So before they started the marathon, their blood was taken and there was a inflammatory marker called HSCRP that was measured, and that was normal. And then after they completed the marathon, they actually checked their blood again for the same marker of HSCRP, and that was high. So just doing one marathon from starting to finish actually raises their inflammation markers in the body. And
Mm-hmm.
we know that Hashimoto's disease is basically the underlying cause is the inflammation, right?
Yeah.
So yes, we can kind of say that people who are over exercising in certain situations can maybe increase their potential chances of having Hashimoto's disease, especially if they do get exposed to other things. So let's say if they're over exercising, but at the same time they get an emotional stressor their way,
Yeah.
or they get like exposed to certain kind of toxins, or
Mm.
they get infection, right? So then I think this combination can become lethal, and then that can lead to Hashimoto's disease too.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can see it's kind of like a bucket with a hole in it that just kind of keeps adding more holes to that bucket. Now, you touched on intermittent fasting, and right now that seems to be the rage for most people.
Exactly. So again, intermittent fasting, as you said, like a lot of people are using it, for anti-aging, for healthy purposes, for losing weight, for reducing inflammation, you name it, right? Intermittent fasting is the it thing right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
But again, for Hashimoto's and thyroid disorders, fasting has to be used very judiciously.
Mm.
So again, what happens, right? In fasting, right? Whenever we are doing longer fast, our body goes to these starvation modes, right? When it goes to a starvation mode, gets that sends a signal to your thyroid gland, hey, slow down, because we are starving to death right now. So you need to produce less thyroid
Ah,
hormone so that we don't starve to death. We don't eat ourselves, right? And
right,
then suddenly we
right.
start eating again, and then again that sends a signal to the thyroid gland. Oh well, there is too much food now. Like produce thyroid hormone. So again, that goes to a yo-yo thing, right? That is not good. So it
Gotcha,
has been
gotcha.
shown that people who do longer fasts,
Hmm.
and they're doing longer fasts for several days, right? A lot of
Yeah,
people do. Their thyroid hormone levels goes low. Now, yes, the research do suggest that once they start eating, the thyroid hormone normalizes. But I think, like going through these cycles again and again puts the thyroid at risk for Hashimoto's. The
yeah,
same thing happens with intermittent fasting. Now, intermittent fasting, a lot of people are doing extreme ways. They are going above 18 hours to 20 hours of fast because they feel
yeah,
the longer the fast, the better it is.
yeah,
Now, again, the research says that between 14 to 16 hours of intermittent fasting is actually good enough.
yeah,
It
yeah,
gives you all the benefits. It produces the ketones, it reduces your inflammation markers. And I think that's the safe spot for also Hashimoto's or thyroid patients. If you are doing intermittent fasting, then stick between 14 to 16 hours. Don't go beyond it because, again, that leads your body into a little bit more starvation mode. And again, that might not be very good for it. So again, if you're doing intermittent fasting, do it properly. In like especially if you have thyroid and Hashimoto's disease. So again, you're not harming your body that way.
yeah. No, and I like your approach that, you know, you've given us little pebbles, right? Like I can collect these little pebbles and none of this feels like that's heavy lifting, that you're telling me that I gotta, build a house in a day in order for me to fix my Hashimoto's. I feel that everything you've given me are just little things, that just these small adjustments that I can make throughout my life, my eating, that eventually I will start to feel better. And I think for my listeners, and I'm sure for your patients, most people want you to give them a pill, like give me a pill and I'll be on my way, doc. Thanks for your time. And I think the hardest part for most of us is that the lifestyle stuff, the letting life go, and taking the 5 minutes of deep breath, taking the 5 minutes of meditation, and not being this like, always feeling like we're in a rush to get everything done and do everything.
Absolutely. And again, like I'm still researching that magic pill that one day will come out that will treat all of my Hashimoto's clients. Not yet. So we have to do it the hard way. But the good part is that, there is no rush. I always tell
Yeah,
people, don't get overwhelmed with information. Oh, I need to do this, 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 this.
yeah,
Start with just one thing.
yeah,
Pick one habit and change that. Once you
yeah,
have mastered that habit, then pick the second one and then do the third one.
yeah.
Now, again, like in functional medicine, integrative medicine, we are creating this culture of hating food. People literally come to see
Yes.
me, literally eating five foods. Oh, I was told I
Oh,
cannot eat this, I cannot eat this, I cannot eat this. I said, then what are
yes.
you eating? I'm
I
eating these five
know.
foods. I said,
Yes.
no, this is not right. I said, food is, medicine. We need to eat food. You cannot replace food with supplements. So I
Oh,
said, yes,
completely.
every day we are coming out with, oh, this food has this is bad for us, this is bad for us. I said, then what is good? There's nothing left which is good.
Oh,
So
my
please
goodness.
don't hate food. There are certain things we know for sure is not good. Please stay away from them. And then that's enough. Stay away from the
Yeah.
bad food and include good foods in your body, right? It's not complicated. If you just do that, that will solve a lot of your problems.
Yeah, you're so right that, so many foods have been vilified. And I was like, I'm like, you talk about green vegetables, you're like, people are like, oh, is kale better than spinach? I'm like, it's green, eat it. Like, just eat it.
And people come to see me like they said, oh, your diets are like, so liberal. What about this? This doctor told me that, this is bad because this is this. I said, okay, I've done this for a long time. Do you want to get better? You did this
Yeah.
diet. Are you better? And they said, no, I'm sitting in front of you. I said, okay, then let's do the diet which I'm telling you to do.
Yeah.
If you do not get better in 4 to 6 months, then I will take the blame. And
Right.
luckily, by God's grace, each and every client that works with us out of those 4 to 6 months thanks us saying that Dr. Gupta, finally, I'm able to eat outside. I'm
Right.
actually enjoying my life. because
Right.
I love food. Who doesn't love food, right? So they said, we can now eat food as well as my quality of life is better. So he said,
Right.
like I am kind of having best of both the worlds, where I'm enjoying my life with my, eating outside, enjoying with my friends, doing things that I want to do. And plus my
Right.
quality of life is much better. So I said, it's a win-win situation.
And you just I think you just nailed it, and I think there's a great way to, like, wrap up this conversation. Just the quality of life, I was just listening to a podcast earlier today, and this woman, talked about how many years she, like, wasted because she was so wrapped up in, what exactly is in this food and, interrogating the waiters and waitresses about her food, that she just, like, I sucked the joy right out of inviting me to dinner because everyone knew like, oh
Mhm.
God, she's going to be the person who's going to ask 5 million questions.
Exactly. And I trust me, like every second client of mine, is stuck into these things. So like let me share the story of a client, like who I'm just working with, so she has been working with us for 5 months, 34-year-old female, was diagnosed with Hashimoto's 4 years ago, was having all of the symptoms. It started off feeling tired, like because she just delivered her baby. So she was
Hmm.
told that, oh, this is just baby brains,
Right,
like, you
right.
it's just you delivered the baby, you're stressed out. That's the reason you're tired. She said, okay, well, maybe that's the case. Then slowly and slowly, she started gaining weight. Then after that, she was having gut issues with constipation, bloating. Then she started having brain fog problems. She was forgetting things. And then after that, mood changes came into place with depression, anxiety. Every time she will go to the doctor, they said everything is normal. Your thyroid numbers are fine. You take this medicine, go home. If this is not getting better, please see a psychiatrist. He said, nothing is wrong with my head.
Right.
I'm not depressed, but I'm not feeling good. Obviously, they could not do anything. And then obviously she started researching online with her own research. She, saw this podcast and then interviews or maybe reading online and things, and she started cutting back on things.
Yep.
So again, like, she was not eating like, any grains. She was not eating any she had to take 2 naps in the day just to actually function through the whole
Oh.
day. She was having more brain foggy and she was just 34. She was forgetting things. Literally, she could not have a conversation because she could not remember the name of the people who she has met.
Oh, that's
That was,
horrible.
she was so bad. So finally she found me, and then we started like, interrogating in terms of what was going on. We started doing our own investigations. We found a whole bunch of things. Her gut was in a very poor shape. She had a lot of bad bacteria. She had leaky gut issues. She had been exposed to mold, like in the house that she was living previously, which was just like a water damage to the house, like a, water leak, but that led to mold issues. And then plus stress,
Yeah.
like which has been piling in that. And then, like in the very first visit, I said, you are eating very less. We need to expand your diet. And she just
Mm.
flipped out. She, Dr. Gupta, no, I cannot do that because I have researched a lot. Trust me. And then, like I have been told I should not be eating those things. I said, okay, if you're not ready to expand the diet, maybe next visit we are going to talk about it. But why don't you start a stress reduction thing? Why don't you start doing a gratitude journal
Right,
of,
right.
kind of expressing gratitude, the thing that has been given to you, to kind of expressing gratitude towards the food that has been given to you. And then I said, let's start with some supplements to kind of, replenish your nutrients, fix your gut and things. A month later on, she was feeling a little bit better. Gut was getting better. She was getting a little bit more energy. So she had a little bit more confidence in me at the time. And then
Mm.
I said, suggested her, why don't you maybe just include one more category of food, whichever you feel is safest? He said, well, I think, I don't think my vegetables are really so bad. I think I can include those. I said, bingo, go for it. So she
Mm.
included those. Anyway, so every month we actually started adding one more category of food. And
Good.
then now it's been 5 months. And then her, she was feeling so great. Like she said, Dr. Gupta, I cannot imagine. I don't have to take a nap anymore to function
Yay.
through the day. I'm able to remember things. My gut issues are gone. I feel my digestion is much better than before. My skin is doing good. He said, and I'm able to eat lot more foods as
Awesome.
compared to when I came to see you. She said, I cannot imagine that, like I was actually starving my body from inside by not taking
Yeah.
those food. And now I'm eating those and I'm feeling better. So I said, yes, exactly. That's the case. He said, that gratitude journal was very helpful because
Mm.
now she has that gratitude, that, okay, well, I'm getting this food, I've been given this food and everything around her. So I think that change of mindset and doing those things was very helpful for her.
Oh, for
And I think
sure.
that's what we all need. And just simple changes, was just kind of life changing.
Yeah, no, I absolutely, I love that. I love that story because I feel like a lot of clients, come to you or I, and they are eating like birds. And, because they've been so afraid of food for so long, and that when you even say add in a cup more vegetables, it freaks them out. And so, we as practitioners, we have to say, okay, I'm going to meet you where you are. What feels good? What feels, approachable for you? And even if it's something outside of the box, like what doctor would tell you gratitude journal, right? I come to see a doctor, I expect a prescription, not go to your local store and buy a journal. Like that's not what I expect. And I know for me, when I started my whole health journey, I was a stress ball. I'm in recovery. And my doctor told me to read the book, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. And I remember leaving, and I'm sure this woman too left kind of pissed. Like, I come to you and you're telling me to buy a damn journal? And I left my doctor mail. You're telling me to buy a damn book. I wanted a prescription, and now I'm sure here we are later on the other side. We're like, you know what? That was probably the best advice I ever got.
Exactly. And that's where, like sometimes you have to do a mix because,
Yeah.
like I understand these situations. I went through that. You went through these situations, right? At the time, we think that there is some big thing needs to happen for us to get
Yes.
out of that rut, right? And we all feel that way. So sometimes what we do is that we do a mix of things. Yes, we are giving you these supplements. They are the ones which are helping you most heavy lifting. They are doing it, but on the side, can you do this also?
Mm.
That's nothing. This is a minor thing. Why do you do this? And as soon as they start doing that with the supplements, again, like they think the supplements are doing the main thing, but in fact,
Yes.
there is something else. Until, as you said, a few months later on, when they're in a better mind space, when they're feeling better, then they actually introspect and realize, okay, well, what is the importance? So a lot of these people have lost hope, right? There is no hope for them to get better. They said, I have feel this way for years. How can anybody get me better? I have
True.
literally done, I have seen like several doctors. People come to see me after seeing like 20, 25
Oh
doctors.
God, yeah.
That we have seen the best specialists in the country. Nobody could fix me. How can you fix me? I said,
Right.
well, that's a lot of pressure, but I can try.
Yeah.
I said,
Yeah.
I can try. We have had good success. And I always tell people, just trust me. I said,
Yeah.
I'm not asking you for your trust for years and years.
Right.
Trust me 4 to 6 months. If you can trust me that amount of time, then let's work and things are going to change. And then that amount of time is good enough for people to change and get better.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So, Dr. Gupta, this has been really awesome. I have like, I always love when I meet new people and they share a very similar mindset to me of just keep it simple. Like we've all done the complicated, and God knows the complicated has not gotten us anywhere but afraid of things. And I always ask my guests, like, what's one thing that makes you feel magical?
I just feel magical by the strength of like
Mm,
giving hope to people that they can get better. Like I
yeah.
think at this point of time a lot of people have lost hope that they
Yes.
can get better, especially with thyroid and Hashimoto's. Everybody has been telling them,
Yes.
no, you cannot
Yes.
get better, you cannot get better. You have to live this life this way, which is defined with this disease. And I am so kind of glad that I can be that shining hope for those people, that there is hope for you to get better. Don't let anybody tell you that there is no light at the end of the tunnel. If you do the right things, if you ask the right questions, you can get better, and you deserve that quality of life that everybody's enjoying.
I that I hear so many different answers to that question, but I love that answer because I know what it's like to feel hopeless, and you're just going to knock on one more door of a doctor who like isn't going to dismiss your symptoms and make you feel like you are crazy. And so, you offering hope, that is just that just made my absolute day. And I've really enjoyed this conversation, and I've learned so much. I've taken some notes from this, and I want to thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me and my magic makers.
Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Awesome. Well, magic makers, definitely buy his book. And just, even if you don't have Hashimoto's, there's so many things that he has shared here that I think are just great basis for living. And if you're that person who is afraid of food, for the love of God, something that comes from the ground, swims in the ocean, walks on the ground, flies in the air, it's not going to harm you. Just add a little something, something more to your nutrition. Because trust me, just as that woman, she felt a lot better just by adding in just a small amount of food, or even just being grateful that you're able to open your eyes this morning. So thank you again so much for having on the show. And if anyone wants to follow you, where can they follow you on the social medias?
So our social media handle is Anshul Gupta MD. We actually have a very active YouTube channel where we share a lot of different videos about thyroid and Hashimoto's with a similar handle, as well as on Instagram also, which Anshul Gupta MD. People can follow us over there.
And I'm going to also link that, as well as link his book in the show notes, that you can easily find that on Amazon. And so if you have any issues, like he said, he does have a virtual clinic. So look him up and he will be able to help you out with your Hashimoto's. Enjoy the rest of your day, Magic Makers. Thank you.